Professor Scott Galloway made an appearance on Bill Maher's show this past weekend, and amongst the bevy of things that they chatted about, from politics and men's mental health kind of stuff. One of the interesting things, at least from my perspective, is TikTok and whether the social media platform should be banned. Banned because of its ties to China and the fact that the Chinese government typically has a hand in a lot of the businesses in China. And I think Professor Galloway talks about how we don't really want the data, the preferences, the likes, dislikes, that kind of stuff, that kind of data from our young people here in this part of the world, in the U.S., in the hands of the Chinese government. Especially if there isn't the reciprocity to where Instagram and Facebook and Google and all of our platforms here in the U.S., where we don't have access to the Chinese market as freely as TikTok has access to the U.S. market, something like that. And the political side is not my area of expertise. It's not my forte. But the one thing that comes to mind, if I were to make a comment on that, is there's a Stoic quote that people suffer more in imagination than they do in reality. I think that might not be the exact words, but the idea is there. And until we see real proof that this is happening, then I reserve judgment on whether TikTok as a platform should be banned or not. I do think, though, there's an interesting business angle, an interesting marketing angle, an interesting kind of market gap angle around, the use case as, if TikTok is banned here in the U.S. Here on screen right now is a chart of how quickly TikTok got to 1 billion users versus Instagram, and how quickly Instagram got to 1 billion users. And it took 8 years or so for Instagram to get to 1 billion. And it took just under 4 years for TikTok to get, so half the time, for TikTok to get to 1 billion users, 1 billion monthly active users, so even more significant. And if, as a marketer, you go, okay, well, why? Why did TikTok, penetrate the market so quickly, and why did it get adoption so quickly? And I think one of the reasons, and it's something that James and I talk about often, is preferences, right? One of the things that I think is rather irksome about Instagram right now is that it's starting to look and feel like Reels is the priority, and we know for a fact that Reels is the priority from a strategy standpoint for that platform. Influencers and people with larger platforms, larger user bases are paid money to make sure that they do Reels and things versus the standard static post. And you see that kind of shift as well over at YouTube, where YouTube Shorts are getting a little bit more play. Why? I think that's a great question. There has to be some data around, maybe like engagement being higher, or their ability to gauge whether what you enjoy is easier when you're going through content that's short form like that. But my impression is that for the most part, people go to YouTube for long form content, and people go to Instagram to look at pictures. And the blending of those platforms to where they're trying to take the greatest attribute of TikTok and build it into their platforms, just you can see the appeal, but I don't think it works. And so, or at least over the long term, I don't think it works, because it dilutes what those platforms are for. And the worst thing that you can do as a social media platform, I think, is to lose the essence of what it is that brought people to your platform in the first place. That's where TikTok has a big advantage, I think, because it is that short form, video content platform, and it always has been. And I think, I read a crazy stat that a really significant portion of young people, I can't remember whether it was 50 or 80, just a significant portion actually use TikTok for their search, more so than they do Google. And I know that, if you're in the marketing world at all, Neil Patel is a big name. A lot of his content lately has been, how to basically, optimize for TikTok. And so you can tell that there's obviously a big pull for that kind of a platform. Now, if TikTok was to be banned, there would have to be a massive market gap for a US-based startup, for example, to capture share. To be built solely, or as priority one, to be the short form video platform, and capture an enormous share. I think it would be wise, if you think about kind of the political activity right now, for a company to start building that platform, because of what we see with the priorities at Facebook, Instagram, and Google with YouTube. So that's the more interesting story, I think. Whether or not TikTok gets banned, whether or not they're, the CCP is using the data for nefarious reasons, I don't know. But if it were to be banned, I think there's a really, really significant gap in the market for a US-based company to take a lot of share. And you may see, that curve halved again, to where it would maybe take like even 2 years, 1 year for this US-based company to reach 1 billion users, if it were to just try and grab all the share that TikTok has taken just in the US. So, or at least globally, because I suppose the US wouldn't have enough to have 1 billion monthly active users. But if there were certain geographies of the world that banned TikTok, you could see how they would need somewhere to go, and hopefully a US-based startup would be the one to capture it all. Because I think that the idea that they would all shift to Instagram, I think, or YouTube Shorts, I'm not entirely sure, because people have other reasons for going there. And to double up on a platform is tough. I mean, just look at MySpace back in the day and the transition to Facebook. I mean, all these things could have been the other thing, could have been the one that blew up. But it's hard for users. It's the reason why, when you think about brands as well, that it's hard for people to shift to a brand wholeheartedly if that brand doesn't do one thing extremely well, and tries to do too many things for too many people. It's the idea. It's the marketing 101 kind of concept around building a niche and getting very good. If you're building a new company, do you want to be everything to everybody, or do you want to be a real kind of specialist at one thing and then build your share from there? I think that's usually the more prudent way to go. So, those are my remarks, or at least thoughts, on Scott Galloway's appearance on Bill Maher. If you haven't had a chance to check out, some of the clips from the show, it really was a great appearance. Galloway talks about a bunch of different things passionately, and I think he really does stand out as having some really thoughtful things to say about a host of different topics. One being, of course, TikTok, which I think is ripe for discussion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Your thoughts on TikTok as a platform. Are you on it? How often do you use it? Or do you use it more than Instagram or YouTube? I'm very interested to know your use case, and also whether you think it should be banned here stateside, at least in the short term.